So today I'm going to show you guys how I made the Witcher's sword. Costumes from my new book, Cosplaying When You're Broke. For the sword, just get yourself some thick cardboard, corrugated cardboard. Cut yourself out the sword blade. So this is what the basic sword blade looks like, and I do have this in the template. So this is the top piece, is this piece here, just like that. And then the little point on it is in case you don't want to have to measure the point of the blade. And then you'll just cut yourself two long thin pieces that should be longer than the handle, so you can measure those off the template as well. That's that piece right there. And one gets glued on the top, one gets glued on the bottom, just like that. Then I took a piece of nice compressed cardboard. It's a little stronger than corrugated, and I glued, it was a thin piece, so I glued it down. I glued another one next to that. You want to leave a gap in the middle, and they shouldn't extend to the edges either. So we're making a fuller on the sword for the same reason that they do on the real ones, to make it stronger without too much additional weight. So you do that to both sides of the sword blade. It's still a little bit fragile right now. Leave the end of it, the pointed end, blank. Put some of that compressed cardboard on either side of the handle, and then get some nice thin cardstock. Put a little bit of glue on the fuller edges, and then you're just going to glue that piece of cardstock there so that it's hanging off the edge of the sword blade. And you're going to do that all the way down the sword blade on both sides. And then flip it over, and you're just going to cut off the cardstock so that it's just a little bit beyond the corrugated cardstock, about 1/4 inch or so. Just like that. And then you're going to flip it over and do the same thing on the back side. Sticking on those pieces of cardstock and cutting them down to size. And you should be able to have the edges long enough so that if you pinch them, they should match with each other, and that's what's going to give the blade its taper, its realistic taper. So put a little bit of glue in between those pieces. You could also use hot glue for this, but you have to work fast if you're doing that, so I used regular glue. And you can just squeeze those together. I put a little bit of tape on mine to hold them in place while they were drying, but I did not take the tape off afterwards, and I should have, because it's very obvious where the tape is afterwards. But once it's dry, you've got a nice tapered sword blade, and it's starting to look like a sword. So then take some silver adhesive foil. You can also use tin foil, but you have to glue it on. And take a paintbrush, and just the handle of a paintbrush, and just grind that down into that fuller groove there. And you want to smooth it out so it sticks to the top edge of the sword, but don't stick it to the tapered part yet. Just smooth it so it sticks along the flat top edge there. Cut off the edges. You don't want to cover the triangle point yet. And then cut off the excess so that it just barely extends beyond the cardstock, just a little bit. Not too much, just a little bit. And then do the same thing on the back side of the sword, on the same piece there. Again, putting it on. And then you want to pinch those edges together all the way down the blade, and that will give it that tapered sword blade look, and the adhesive foil sticks to itself. So do the same thing to the other side on both the front and the back, so that you've got a full-length sword blade. And then down on the point, stick yourself some pieces of silver foil across the point, pinch them together. The reason you have to do this separate is because they don't bend more than one direction. And put a few pieces up on the exposed part of the cardboard on the top. Then I took a watch box, which had like this amazingly strong but thin cardboard. I cut a little pointed piece out of it and folded some silver foil around it. In order to fold it around curves, you'll just have to make a few cuts and then fold them up over the back edges just like that. Cut off any excess. And then I just took that and glued it right where the corrugated cardboard met the other. And then I stuck a second one on and went over where the two met. So it's pulled back a little bit there for artistic flair and strength. Then I took two pieces of compressed cardboard, glued them together, and covered them in silver foil. Again, same thing, making cuts, folding it around the back side, and then I glued the back side onto another piece of foil, cut off the excess so that it was silvered on both sides. The back side's a little lumpy, but it will be the back side, so not much of it will be seen. Then cut some cardboard squares, glue them on top of each other into a little stack, cover the stack completely with silver foil. Go back to your ovals, glue one on the front side. You want to cover where the two pieces of cardboard meet, because that will give it additional strength. Glue the little cardboard stacks, two of them, one on either side, and then put some glue on those stacks so that you can glue the other oval right on top of that. You should have two ovals. Just like that, starting to look like a hilt. take a piece of cardboard, roll it up around a pencil just to get it started, and then you're going to wrap that. I actually used 2 sheets to wrap around here. Wrap those sheets around the hilt. You can taper it down as you go. I taped it in place to hold the glue. Then I took some small scraps of fake black leather and I wrapped that around the hilt pieces there. If you run out, because I'm using scraps here, so if you're also using scraps, if you run out, just stick another piece on there and just keep right on wrapping. You can glue it in place if you want, and the wrapping pressure should hold it in place as well. So there it is. Once it's all wrapped, I cut a little oval with a slit in the end of it, and I glued that right onto the end of the wrapped hilt. And then I took a plastic light bulb. Well, it's a light bulb that's plastic coated and there's no mercury in it, so it's safe to use. And I painted the whole thing silver because it's plastic. I don't have to worry about it breaking. And once it was fully silvered, I just glued that onto the end of the hilt to be the pommel. And I put a little bit of silver foil on the end too, just to make it nice and shiny. And then I just took some silver foil and I wrapped a little piece right around the bottom of the black wrapping there. So it just goes all the way around there, just like that. Then I put some stray pieces in the middle between the ovals where you could still see some of the cardboard. Just kind of jammed them in there to cover it up. So then cut a long rectangle and 2 small ones. Stack the 2 rectangles in the center and the long rectangles on the outsides, tapering the edges down, just like that. And then wrap the entire thing in silver. So put silver on one side, cut off the excess, put silver on the other side, cut off the excess, and wrap silver around the top and the bottom, and cut off the excess. So the whole thing should be covered in silver. Put some glue inside the ovals, and then just slide that piece right in between the ovals. Do that on both sides to complete the hilt base. And any areas where the cardboard's showing, just cover with some silver foil. Then I cut a little arrowhead-shaped piece and covered it in gold foil. That's out of the Watchbox cardboard again, so it's really strong compressed cardboard. I went through my collection of beads and plastic gems until I found a nice blue square one and stuck that on that golden arrowhead. Then I got out the puffy paint. I'm using silver puffy paint here, and I drew on a bunch of little lines down the hilt. I did 3 lines on the side pieces, and then in the center I just did like some half moon shapes and filled those in with some lines and some lines up the center. And you can take a lot of artistic liberty with this, just kind of draw on lines and they look cool. So there's my design on the front, and I did the same thing on the back, except I worked around the arrowhead, obviously, the golden arrowhead there. So then I took the top of a container of nuts and I drew a half moon shape. I cut it out with a utility knife, so it ended up like that. I cut a piece of cardboard, the same shape, and I glued that inside the back of the top so that it would be thick all the way through it. Took a whole bunch of random beads and buttons and things like that, and then I just glued them on to the front of the top. It looks really ridiculous before it's painted, but don't worry, because once you get it painted it looks like it's supposed to be like that. So I took some puffy paint and went around the opening of the half moon shape there, and then I did some lines coming down from the top and some horizontal lines meeting those. And then some little swirls for good measure. And so you want to cover the whole thing in gold paint, just like that. It looks much better once it's gold. And then you want to put on some plastic gems. Did a few red ones and a few green ones, just pulling from my collection. And then I put one tiny little piece of silver foil in between the red ones. So that's Renfri's brooch, and that just gets glued on at the point where the ovals meet the black, because that will help strengthen that area. I did paint it gold on the back because you can still kind of see a little bit of it. So here's the entire sword, and it does look pretty realistic to most people. And if you guys want to see how I made the rest of this costume, then check out my new book, Cosplaying When You're Broke, which is currently available for pre-sale. The links are in the description box.